Okay, here we have a picture of a cue ball with the center point. So that's where you're going to be hitting the cue ball. Don't forget, it's generally center cue ball. Of course, you can go up and down, or for either follow or stopping. But the pivot would come from either left side of the cue ball or right side, half a tip, and that's where you're going to be shooting from. What we have here right in front of us is the bridge length, and that's from your bridge hand to the cue ball. If the ball that you're shooting is a foot or less, try to hold your cue 5 inches, maybe 6 from the cue ball. I'm just pushing it up so you could see it, but basically it should be just a few inches. I usually just always keep it around 6 or 7 inches in any case, but sometimes it's smaller, sometimes a little larger. But generally, this is the way it works. It's 2 foot is around 6 or 7 inches. 2 feet if the ball is over 2 feet, you should hold it around 7 or 8 inches away from bridge hand to cue ball, and 2 feet or more is 8 to 9 inches. Seems like a lot, but that's the general guess, and that's important. Bridge length is important. Here we have the object ball, which is really the most important of this entire system. A, B, and C is aim lines. Don't forget they're aim lines only. They're not lines to shoot at. They're just aim lines at 15A, 30B, and 45C. If you look at the stripe ball, the A would be on the left edge of the red, B would be right in the middle of the red stripe, C is on the right side of the red stripe, and the dot, which is the 1/8 point, would probably be in the middle between the edge of the cue ball and the stripe on the edge. And that's your aim lines, which are considered percentages: A 15, B 30, and C 45, which are again, they're just aim lines, and they're not aims, not shots that you shoot. All right, so here we have we were lucky to have a little line across there. It looks like the edge from the slate, but either way, there's a nice line there, which shows us how to want to move our stick in, and we're just kind of left of the cue ball, which gives us that 1/4 inch tip, and then moving right to center. You could sweep either left or right, and some shots you could sweep inside. Is usually it's supposed to be thin as in, and so on and so forth. Out is thick. So that means if you had a straight shot, you could sweep from the outside. If you had a thin shot, you sweep from the inside. What I'm really pointing right now is you could look at my forefinger on my finger, just the joint. You see it's a little over the line if you sweep from left to right, and then all of a sudden when you go to the line, now it's just, as you can see, look at the way it's a very subtle difference, but there is a difference, and you kind of notice where that line falls in. You have to practice this. Maybe you see it clearer here. The camera angle looks like it's off, but the cue ball is really right dead center, and this kind of shows you a little bit of how you're laying out. When you come down, you're going to just kind of pivot it right into there you go. You just bring your finger right there. You're pivoting into center. Then you go to center and you shoot. I kind of tend to sweep one way, but you can sweep either way, sometimes depending on the shot. You can notice the forefinger is just about the line, and if you sweep the other way, it's just before the line. So it's a very subtle difference, but there is a big difference when you start laying down. Your left leg should be in back of that cue ball. You kind of line up, move right into the shot, and you just pull straight. You see the forefingers right a little bit over. If you notice that just a slight bit of difference, and I'm just going to point that out right now. You see how it's just over the line? It kind of went that way a little bit. So practice that. It's very important to have this kind of technique down pat, because that's almost really the most important part, to line up behind that cue ball where you could pivot either way. These are all manual pivots. Once you get more into the CTE, in fact, more of the traditional CTE recently is just move right into the shot, move over to center, and you shoot. Manual pivots, if you use it, it's fine. Here we have a picture of the object ball, and cue ball going right almost straight to the pocket, so you can see the A, B, and C lines which are facing you, and this is a kind of a standard shot that you would take. So what you can do in this case is just you're hitting always the in 15 and 30%. Its center line cue, or the cue ball center line, will go to the opposite edge of the cut. So just remember that on 15 and 30, the center cue ball line is always to the opposite edge of the cut. The other line that you would, and there's two fixed lines in CTE, would go to one of the aim lines. That's either A, B, and C in general. If it's a 45 degree or above, you're going to go to a one-shot visual. So here I am, just moving it over. You can see the pivot a little bit right there, and I'm lining up center cue ball to edge, and then edge to A. And then you just push it right in. These shots are just for visuals, just to get an idea of where to position. You're coming back at that cue ball, and in this case it's a left cut, so you're going to put center cue ball to the right edge of the object ball, and then line it up accordingly. You're pivoting over right to, in that case right to B, and you're in. Here's a couple of, I put a couple of straws there just to give you a kind of lines, and they're in effect showing you the lines that you would see. One line is going from the center of the cue ball to the edge of the object. I'm pointing it at right now. The other line is going from the left edge of the cue ball to A. You're pivoting over and you shoot in. These are visual lines that you have to look in your head, and you'll see them kind of, and you just develop that technique where you could just shift right over and pivot over to center cue ball and shoot. As you can see, I'm lining up to A. You point at A, pivot over to, I'm pivoting over from left to right to center, right where the dot is, and I'm going to put it right in. In this case, I could go back I could do it the other way as well. It's sometimes the pivot is opposite from where you're cutting, but at the end of the day, you're still going to hit on the edge. I'm just showing you different techniques of how you can sweep right in and get the same center ball. These are basically the pivoting that you would need to make this shot. Take the straws out of there. You don't need them anymore. These lines are visual, so just line up the A, pivot over, and you can make that shot. Once you get the knack of how to shoot like this, everything else becomes secondary. You could just line up your center, always the center, and 15 and 30%. Don't forget, center cue ball line is two fixed lines. Center cue ball line is the opposite edge, and the other line is going to one of the A's. So it's the left. In this case, it's the left line of the cue ball is going into the A. I'm pivoting over from right to left and hitting it in. Here's the same cut. I'm going into it's kind of a left cut coming into the cue ball. So there you go. One of the straws is to the right side, going from right side cue ball to C. The other one is going from center cue ball right to the edge. So just line that up. Those aim lines are considered just aim lines. They're not the lines that you shoot toward. They're considered perceptions. So you pivot over, and that's it. Nice cut there. This is so you remember this, center ball pointing to the edge, center cue ball line would go to that edge. That's the right edge of the object ball. The other line's going from the left edge of the cue ball to B. Pivot over. Once you get that offset, you just pivot right over. Here's a bunch of rail shots. Almost all these shots are pretty close. It's going to be a center cue ball to right object ball edge. Hitting it straight up looks like a B, so it's kind of hitting into the B. All you do is just pivot over, and you get in. Almost all these shots are very similar, if not exactly the same. So I'm coming in. I'm just hitting the ball. This one's a little bit different because it's kind of a cut. It's going the other direction, but essentially the same thing. It's a B cut. You're pivoting it over, and you're right in. You got to get on the table. Practical experience is key on this stuff. You really got to get to the table and get the visuals firsthand. Reading a book or looking at these videos is just not going to make it. It took me several months just to figure out the basics. And every time you watch a video, you have to watch it maybe 10 more times to figure out what they're talking about. And it includes my own videos. So I'm just lining up. I really don't even use that generally. I'm just doing it for the video. But you just line up that cue ball. This is the opposite the rail. It's lined up. That was probably an A, straight up, going straight up. I'm lining up. What I'm doing is I'm bringing it over, and what I'm doing is put it on the rail. So I'm lining up the center cue ball to the edge. Right edge it could be B. I mean, it's hard to tell from this video, but it could be B or an A. I think it could be probably an A. Perception is the key. I mean, that's the only way you could probably miss a shot if you missed the perception. So work on the perceptions. You know, if the difference between A and B, sometimes it's the latitude of, you know, it's a pocket's much bigger than the cue ball. So if you're off with a little bit, it may not make a difference. In general, though, try to see if you could guesstimate which is it in terms of the aim line percentage, whether it be in this case a B or an A shot. I believe it's straight up is usually a B. So I'm just pointing at the edge and just moving it right over. Here we go. This is a cut to the corner. You can read what I put down there, but it's hitting. It's a 1/8 point. What I'm doing is I'm pointing it from cue ball to center. Look at the pivot. You see the pivot? Kind of missed that one, but that's okay. It's got close. I'm human. Here we go. A little spot shot. This is a one-line visual going to the left side of that object ball. 1/8. Here's a ball going right to the side. It's a 1/8 point, so all you do is aim for that 1/8 point. Cue ball center is right edge. You shoot from left. Pivot. Watch the pivot coming in. I got the ball in. It did scratch, but you know, whatever. Anyway, so here we are, the same shot. I'm pivoting over. I'm going to aim for the center cue ball to the edge of the object ball, but I'm shooting it offset. So I'm aiming. The offset is aiming at the 1/8 point, and then I'm pushing the cue right to center, and then moving up. Look at see the pivot. couple more rail shots just to give you because the camera is good on these shots. It gives you a little more of an angle. Straight up. Some of these you have to again figure out if it's a B or an A, but most of these shots, in fact, I think most shots in general are B's and A's, 15 to 30%. This is probably in 1/8, but it's coming straight up the rail like that. They said about 80% of the shots are considered A and B shots. When you start going a very steep angle, it's 45, and when you get really, really tight, it can be 60 degrees or more, then it becomes like a 1/8 hit. So when you're shooting these shots, you just line up those two visual lines, and this is it's a center cue ball to the edge of the object ball, and the other line to the letter. I think whether in that case was B. Here's another B shot. So I'm pointing at the edge. I'm lining up. I'm pivoting over. Look at the pivot. When you're lining up, you're lining up to the B. So you line up to that B, and then you pivot. You don't shoot at the B. You line up to the B, and then you pivot to center. Always pivot to center. There's a pivot. You see, you just pivot right over. This is an opposite one. So I'm lining up that center cue ball to right edge, aiming to B, pivoting over. When you start getting these things down pat, you'll generally not miss too much shots. I mean, this really puts you in a very good spot in terms of getting shot making capability. It's almost automatic in a sense that it really puts you in the right spot. And when you miss, you just could say maybe it's the pivot may be wrong or something. Just go back and figure out what you think you did wrong. You start using English and other things, and of course there's other swerve and deflection, all the other stuff that takes it a factor, but in general your shot making capability will increase a lot if you start getting the hang of this stuff. There's a nice cut to the right. You just follow up and just pivot over to center cue ball. There's the left edge going to B. And then offset. Offset means you're half a tip offset, and then putting it to center. So CTE can definitely save your game, and it's really key on tough shots. So if you get stuck anywhere on the table, you can almost shoot shots that people will look at you and think you're crazy. But it could be done because it allows you a little bit better of a kind of ammunition in terms of hitting balls in. This is a nice cut. It would be at least a 60 degrees. So this is a 1/8 cut for sure. And you're just hitting on the left side 1/8. You aim at the 1/8 marker. You offset, and then you bring it to center. These balls are, from the camera you can't tell, but they're lined up parallel to each other to that middle line. So it's a very deep cut. This is also a 1/8 cut. So what I'm doing right now, it's a one-line visual. So you just aim at that 1/8 marker, bring it, pivot over from left to right, hit it center, and you're in. Here's the balls up all the way up table coming down. I want to make that ball in the from here to look like it's going to the left-hand corner. It's a one-line visual. And a very tough shot. You're going to have to trust the pivot a little bit because sometimes the pivot's more correct than your own eye. magically showed up. Okay, here's a 14 ball, and you're kind of stuck. You can't go to the right, you can't go to the left. You could bank it maybe, but the idea here is just to bring it to the side. So I'm lining it up. This is also a 1/8 shot. I'm pivoting over. And there you go. So yeah, this is the CTE at its best. You know, you're in this position. You're really kind of stuck, and this is the kind of dramatic shots you can make. You're just doing the same basic maneuver. You're just lining up, and it's a one line visual. You line up to that 1/8, pivot over the center, and you're in. So I want to show that these shots can be done. It's the same shot. I'm bringing it over. It's actually pointing directly to the side pocket. But I'm going to put it in the corner. So you line up. That visual there is center to the left edge. You're actually aiming at the 1/8 marker. Then you bring it to center, and you shoot. So here's a ball that's going actually to the left-hand corner. I'm going to be hitting a 1/8 point on the left side of the ball. I'm aiming there, and I'm going to be just lining up center cue ball to edge, left edge to the 1/8 marker, pivot to center, and there you go. It's just a very cornered shot, and that's it. Thanks for watching, and feel free to comment and subscribe. Thank you.